This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Gold Boys Network. Here's your host, Will Hill.
Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Gold Boys. Coming up on the show, Matt Youmans of VSiN will join us. We will go over the national title game, Florida and Houston. I will get to the shocker that was Duke Houston and everything that happened Saturday with the Final Four. Before we look ahead to that, we'll also discuss the Masters with Matt Youmans. He is a very sharp golf handicapper, so we'll get his picks, who he's betting, who he's bet, and get his thoughts in general on how to bet that tournament, and maybe sneak in some baseball with Matt. But we'll start with basketball, and I'll get to Florida-Houston, what is a fascinating national title game in just a minute. But this is a situation, and you get a few of these doing these podcasts, doing these shows where I always record it the day after, or sometimes the day after a huge event, and sometimes even 24 hours is not enough for the shock to wear off. I am still sitting here almost a full day later, shocked, absolutely stunned that Duke did not find a way to win that game. Favored going in, line closed like 4.5. So people were betting Houston, went down from 5.5. But Duke was in control throughout, double digits in the first half, and then kind of an underrated part of the game. Houston cuts it to 6 at the break, at the intermission. Think, all right, nice run for Houston, hitting just enough threes to hang in there, hitting a bunch of threes. But the problem is, are you really going to shoot 50% the whole game, which was, I think, an ominous sign for Houston. Duke balloons out to a 14-point lead with 8:02 to go. And there were a few moments when you look back and say, man, this is where Duke let Houston back in the game. There was a 6-point possession for Houston with a technical and a 3 where Houston was able to just like that slash to 8. But even after all of that, even after that sequence, boy, it is hard to just sit here and recap when you go by play and what happened and try to stomach this from a Duke perspective. My goodness, it's so incredible. Flag hits a 3, the only shot, by the way, that Duke hit in the final 10:30. Flag hits a 3 to get the lead back up to 9. Houston had cut it to 4, missed a shot. Duke hits a couple free throws. We're figuring, watching the game, you thought it was over a bunch of different times. All right, it's 6. It's down to 4. Goes right back to 6, and you figure, all right, Duke probably survived that. And just the nature of how this game unfolded with all of the different things that happened. I guess I'll pick it up from the fact that at 9, when Flag hits the 3, Houston scores a minute later, but one possession later, because they get 3 offensive rebounds on the same play. And we're talking 64-55, Flag with 3:05 to go hits a 3. Uzan misses a 3, offensive rebound. Sharp misses a 3, offensive rebound. Tugler misses a jump shot. Eventually, another offensive rebound. Sharp lays it in. You're up 7. Proctor turns it over. It's down to 6. And really, I think at 6 here is when Knipple makes a free throw. Eventually, it's 67-61. At 5, I should say, with 1:14 to go, is when the technical foul happened. A couple things here. Sterator, who's the ref analyst for CBS, tells the technical. I swear, with all the basketball I watched, the technical for reaching over the boundary and touching the ball while it's still out of bounds and the inbounder has it. I've never seen that before. He tells us right away it's a technical. The ref right away calls a technical. At 5, you're thinking, 2 shots in the ball. It's going to be 7, a minute left. They're going to have to start fouling. Sterator never tells us it's an administrative technical. Again, a term I've never heard. It's only 1 shot. Then it's 6. Duke has the ball still. So big difference between 6 and 7. At 6, with a minute 14 to play, Houston decides to play it out. I thought they might foul. A lot of teams probably wouldn't, just play the foul game, use up the 1-and-1s, hope they miss. They play defense. They get a miss. And with 32 seconds left, Duke up by 6. And that's really going to be the crying point from this game, looking back for years from now. And this will be a game years from now you look back on and remember. Up 6 with 33 seconds to go. Houston hits a 3. Sharp hits it, cuts it from 67-61 to 67-64. And at this point, I'm just thinking, man, maybe Houston can cover, maybe they can't. Winning the game never enters my mind, even though it's three. Duke's got the free throws coming. Duke almost gets a 5-second call. Then Duke turns it over, and Houston has a three to tie it. And I don't understand. I thought he was going to make it. And it turns out if he would have made it, it would have been better off because with 30 seconds left thereabouts, Duke could have held for the last shot and either won the game or gone to overtime. But they missed the shot. They get the tip dunk, and then it continued to spiral for Duke. Now, at up one, give Houston credit for another thing. Knipple had the ball. Who's a 92% free throw shooter. They did not foul him. They waited until Proctor got it. Proctor got fouled, misses the 1-and-1, and they call a ridiculous. And not look, you can't feel too bad for Duke. They usually get the calls in these spots, and they only made one shot in the last 10:30. That was an absolutely, completely ridiculous over the back call. Flag did nothing wrong. He reached his hand out there, made no contact with the guy. I thought it was a terrible call, and it sets up a 1-and-1. And just another amazing part of this game. Roberts is a 62% free throw shooter for Houston, and he's got to make a 1-and-1 with all this pressure. And he goes up to the line, sinks the first one, sinks the second one. The ball never even touches the rim. He basically looked like Steph Curry making free throws at the foul line. And then Duke down one, flag settles for a fadeaway. Roberts, who made the two free throws, defends them well. And Duke, and this is a big theme and a big thing, a big reason why I think Duke lost. Duke misses the shot, and there's 5 or so seconds left. They waited a good 2-3 seconds before they fouled. Looked like they didn't know the score, the time. Eventually, Houston gets fouled, seals it at the line, but Duke looked like a team that was not comfortable playing close games. They killed everybody in the ACC. All right, they played a tough non-conference, but they mowed through everybody in the tournament. They really were a team that nobody put a glove on in the last couple months, and you're beating up on Georgia Tech and the North Carolinas of the world. This is a team that did not play in a lot of tight games, and that showed on Saturday night. Now you could say that's playing the results, and if they won, you wouldn't have said that. Maybe that's true, but a utter collapse, an utter meltdown. And when you go back and look at this game, this is one that it's on the short list. It's Greg Norman in the Masters. It's the 13 seconds in the playoff game where the Chiefs were down by 3 against the Bills. And they scored in 13 seconds to force overtime and eventually win it. 28-3 Falcons Patriots Super Bowl. Bills Oilers, the 35-3 playoff game. I mean, it's in that vein in terms of choke jobs. When you're up 6 with 34 seconds left in a Final Four game and you've been dominating the whole night, you're the favorite team. To lose the game and lose in regulation, to be walking off the floor 5 minutes later, Shire looks stunned, Flag looks stunned. You're walking off the floor 5 minutes later after being up 6 and leading the whole game, and you're walking into the losing locker room. That is an all-time bad loss for Duke and a stunning comeback, a great game, a great win. We talked about all tournament. This tournament hasn't had juice, hasn't had memorable moments. This is as memorable as it gets as Houston does the unthinkable, wins, advances to the championship game. They will get Florida. Florida just had too much for Auburn. Broome did not look healthy in the second half. Looked like he kind of wore down. So it will be a Florida-Houston national title game here on Monday. Florida laying a point, total 141. I will just say, if you like Florida, you probably want to parlay some of it with the over. If you like Houston, you probably like the under. I think Florida wants this game in the 80s. Houston probably wants it in the 60s where they can grind it out and they're comfortable that way. It's tough. Can Houston, who played the second game on Saturday, I don't think that should be overlooked after a tough physical draining game mentally, emotionally. Can they respond after a quick turnaround to a Florida team where, look, Houston didn't get done playing until midnight. Florida was able to kick its feet up 8, 9 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night on the East Coast and be done and just watch the game. Meanwhile, Houston is battling to the death hours later. And emotionally, physically, can Houston respond and come up with another big-time performance? We'll see. We'll see. Florida has not been great on one-day prep in this tournament. They almost lost to Texas Tech on one-day prep, and they almost lost to UConn on one-day prep. So their better efforts, their better performances have come against Maryland and against Auburn when they've had more time, when Golden and his staff has had more time for Florida to prepare here. I'm going to go with Florida just because I think they have enough skill. They just have too much skill offensively. And I do think there is something to... You never want letdown's the wrong word to use in a national title game because you're playing for a national title. Houston's never won, Sampson's never won, and it does feel like if you're making the case for Houston that there's some destiny at stake here, especially with the way they won on Saturday night. you could make the case that this is just Houston's time and it's meant to be, and that may very well be the case here. It's a very tough game to call. It's a very tough game to handicap, but I will go with Florida. I just think in a close game, I want Clayton with the ball in his hands. I just trust him to make every big shot. He is incredible, incredible player. I mentioned a couple times on this show that a couple years ago I went and watched uh, Quinnipiac, Iona. Quinnipiac's right down the road. When Patino was coaching Iona, and how there's a couple hundred people in the building, and you think where Patino's come since. Well, on that Iona team, which by the way, Quinnipiac won by about 25 points that day. Clayton was on Iona. Clayton was that Iona team, and you wonder how the hell he ended up at Iona. And it's just funny to look back a couple years later at what he is. He is such a dynamic player. It's almost like you always say in football, you're afraid to bet against Mahomes. I'm afraid to bet against Clayton in a close game. He's just going to make every play. He's going to make every shot, and I expect the same on Monday night. I wouldn't be shocked if Houston won the game. How could you be? They're good. They can shoot more than usual. They're so tough and rugged defensively. They get a million offensive rebounds. Maybe they can keep Florida out of transition. So if you're making a case for Houston, I totally buy it. And if you're making the case with the destiny aspect of this is just a team of destiny, a team that's meant to be, I can understand that. But I'm going to go with Florida. I just think Florida has a little bit more on offense in terms of the weapons, in terms of Clayton. They're a deep team. In Houston, coming off a tough game, I will say fall short, and that would be heartbreaking for Houston to pull off that crazy win, beat Duke, have come so close so many times. The NC State team in '83 where they fell short. They were in the Final Four a few years ago. They've never won, like I mentioned. Maybe this is their time. If you don't have a dog in the fight, you're probably rooting for Houston, but I will go with Florida to get it done here in what should be a tremendous, tremendous national championship game. I mentioned how just the tournament's been a dud. Well, Florida Auburn was good. Duke Houston was great. We'll see if we get more greatness here on Monday night. Florida laying a point, total 141. So if you like Florida, again, I think parlaying with the over, at least for part of your bet, makes some sense. But we'll see what Matt Youmans thinks. That is next. This is Shoulda Bet More podcast. All right, we are back. Shoulda Bet More podcast. You catch him at VSiN.com, VSiN Primetime, where he is the star of the show. It is the great Matt Youmans. Matt, a lot to discuss. Final four, the Masters, some baseball, but let's start with Saturday night, Houston Duke. I am still in shock. Were you as shocked as everybody watching that game? And did you think it was over? Did you think Duke had it won?
You took the words right out of my mouth, man. I'm still stunned by what happened last night, and I still can't figure out how Duke lost that game. It was what, up 9 with a minute and a half to go, something like that, or up 9 with 2 minutes to go, up 7 with a minute and a half to go. It's just shocking to see a team with that much talent blow a lead like that at the end. Can't get the ball inbounds, can't get the ball up court, miss free throws. I had a lot invested in Duke futures at 12-1. Now I did hedge a little bit last night, Houston +5, and then in game Houston +11.5. But I mean, obviously it meant a lot more to me to win the Duke futures, and I just can't believe they lost that game. At one point there, Will, even with about 2 minutes to go, I thought I was going to lose, maybe a minute and a half to go. I thought I was going to lose the Houston +5 bet. And then Houston ends up winning this game 70-67. And it also goes over the total, which is a rough one for a lot of people who bet under 136 and a half. Hopefully you had 137 and at least got a push out of that if you played it under. But, man, that was just a shocking result last night. And that was one that's going to stick with Duke, John Shire, for a long, long time, man. You've got Cooper Flagg and you got a team that talented, and you squandered that opportunity. Boy, I don't know where Duke goes from here. I guess reloads with a bunch of 5-star freshmen again next year.
Yeah, and they look stunned after the game, and rightfully, how could you not be? I mean, with all the basketball we watch, we watch hundreds of games a year.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do you see a team up 6 with 32, 33 seconds left and lose in regulation? It's funny.
I know.
Duke was up 3 inbounding the ball. Then they got the turnover. They almost got the 5-second. Then they did turn over, and Houston shot a 3 and missed. Then it was the tip back dunk. It's funny. Duke would have been better off if they made the 3. Then Duke probably settles for the last shot and either wins the game or goes to overtime. Stunning to think they could have won in regulation. Just an absolute shocking ending. Incredible.
Cooper Flag, actually, I was looking at the box score for that game last night. A couple things jumped out to me. Flag did all he could actually to help Duke win that game with 27 points. Duke only had 4 points from its bench, and aside from Flag and Con Kneppel, nobody really showed up. Nobody else scored in double figures. You had two guys last night who did most of the scoring for Duke, and that's with a team that's got that much depth in a big game like that. How about the Common Malawak, the big man, played well? How about this? He played 21 minutes last night and had 0 rebounds. How is that possible? And Houston, by the way, same thing I noticed against Purdue. Houston just pounds you on the offensive glass and had 18 offensive rebounds last night. And that was the difference in the game as well. But how about I want to throw one thing at you. We'll move on. We'll bury Duke and move past the Blue Devils. But that last play that John Shire drew up, I didn't like it. You got to have Flag going to the. I said even beforehand. It's not hindsight. I said you got to have Flag going to the rim so he can draw a foul or get a high percentage shot with a player like that. And he took a fadeaway jumper, spun into the lane, took a fadeaway jumper. I didn't like the play.
Yeah, and then they screwed it up. They made it worse because there were still almost 6 seconds left, 5.5 seconds left when they missed. And they let 3 seconds run off the clock, kind of looking at each other. And you could tell it looked like, right. And again, it's hindsight, it's playing the results, but they look like a team that hadn't played in close games all season. Let's look ahead to Monday night. Houston, a 1.5 point dog to Florida. Tough game. I've gone back and forth here. I guess I'll ask it this way. Do you worry from a Houston perspective? They played the second game on Saturday night. Florida's got an extra 3 or 4 hours of rest. An emotional game, taxing game physically, mentally. Do you think they'll have enough here Monday? Who do you like in the game?
I like Florida in the game, and I thought it was going to be a Florida Duke final. That's what I predicted from the start. So I'm going to stick with the Gators here. Houston actually shot 10 for 22 from the 3-point line, and is the best 3-point shooting team by percentage in the tournament field. For some reason, when you watch the Cougars, it feels like they do it ugly, right? You don't come away all that impressed. It's a physical game, an ugly game a lot of times, but that's the way Kelvin Sampson coaches, and they're going to try to do the same thing to Florida, right? Drag the Gators into the mud and make Florida play Houston style. And I think they can probably be successful at that. But I also believe the Gators can win a variety of ways. They got big guys that can spread the floor, shoot the three. And the two guards are outright studs, right? Walter Clayton and Elijah Martin. That dunk Elijah Martin had yesterday, just look at his body, too. He's got an NBA body. I think those two guys are going to be too much for Houston. A lot of times the Cougars, they have guards who can get physical with the opposition. These Florida guards are too good for that. I think they can overcome that. And I made this line Florida -1.5. I see it's painted 1 across the screen, so obviously just a minor difference here. I like the Gators. Who do you like?
I do like Florida too. I do think there is something to the fact that Houston played second in the game. It's just going to be rest, recover emotionally. Sometimes we think, and look, I totally understand if you're going to tell me it just feels like Houston's time. Remember, Wisconsin beat that undefeated Kentucky team about a decade ago, and oh man, they beat Kentucky. This is it; they're going to win, and they lost to Duke coincidentally on Monday night. So, wouldn't be shocked if Houston won. I just think Walter Clayton. It's just Clayton is in that mode where it's almost like Patrick Mahomes, where you're terrified to bet against him. It's funny. I mentioned this earlier. I want to play Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac's right down the road from me. 2 years ago, it was Patino coaching a game in front of like 300 people on a Sunday afternoon. And Clayton was playing for Iona. I had no idea. I was basically watching, the next Steph Curry at the time. It's incredible.
It's you bring up a good point because that's such an emotional win for Houston late Saturday night. And it feels like a quicker turnaround for that team. It's almost like when people think that in 1980, the USA hockey team beat the Soviet Union for the gold medal. That was actually in the semifinals. And then the U.S. had to come back and win the championship, and they did a couple days later. But you think of that game, you always think that was a gold medal game. You watch Houston Duke last night, you feel like Houston won the championship after knocking off Duke. But now you got to come back 2 days later and play a Florida team that was probably the hottest team in the field coming into the tournament. and it's got two of the best guards. So I think there's a little something to the turnaround, but probably not too much because Houston. I think Houston can bounce back. When you get a championship game, you're going to have the adrenaline flowing. You're going to be fired up. I don't think fatigue's going to be much of a factor. It's just going to be if Houston can dictate the game and make Florida play on its terms and slow the pace down and make it an ugly half court type of game and pound the Gators on the glass and grab offensive rebounds. That was aside from the Duke collapse, that was the biggest difference last night. I thought the Cougars pounded Duke on the offensive glass, like I said, with 18 rebounds. So that's if Florida loses a game, I think that would be why, is they get beat up inside and beat up on a rebounding battle. But I like Florida again. I know Mitch Moss of VSiN has a lot riding on this. Will, I'm rooting for him. He's got the Florida future, and our buddy JVT got knocked out.
I know.
I'm sure he's feeling great about it at halftime last night. I think he sent me a text that said "effing disaster" or something. But he had an opportunity, and I think he took advantage of it to play the money line on Florida at halftime when Auburn had the 8-point lead, and so at least he was able to monetize that and come out ahead. I was talking with Stormy Bonantoni last night too, and she was talking about how she monetized her Michigan State futures ticket that she got from that same blackjack tournament at Circa. Mitch stands to win, I think, over $100,000. I'm not sure how much he's lost in hedges so far, maybe 5,000-10,000, something like that in hedges. But Mitch has got a lot riding on that game. And Will, I guess you would call that, from his perspective, an ideal scenario because now you can get a small plus price with the underdog when you got the Florida future on Monday night. I do like the Florida side. How much would you hedge? Let's say if you stood to win $100,000 on Florida in that game.
I'd be so tempted to let the game start and hope Florida got a lead and then try to take Houston plus a couple of points and go for a middle. But that's with 100 grand on the line. I don't know that I'd have the guts to it. Maybe play an alternate line just for the, buy a point or so, which normally I wouldn't do, but I would love the idea of just the thought of being able to middle that one. Mm-hmm. But I'd probably, it's tough. I definitely hedge some, 30% of it at least, I would think.
Yeah, I was going to say somewhere around 25 to 33%, something like that, whatever. But the great thing is you can get a Houston, probably plus 105 might be the best price. Is that right? Anyway, it kind of wraps it up. I've got a Florida future at 10-1 too, but it wasn't worth as much as a Duke ticket. So I'm only going to make a small hedge on Monday night, but I do like the Florida Gators and I'm going to bet that. I want to bet that game accordingly later today. A little disappointed, man. I really wanted to see a Duke Florida title game Monday night. I think everyone thought that's where we were headed there with 2 minutes left. And Duke had a 14-point lead in the second half, right?
They did 56-42. And then quickly after, Houston had, was it a 6-point possession, a 3, a technical, and a bucket. And all of a sudden you blink and it was 8. And same thing in the first half where they got up by about, I think, a dozen, and you went into half and it was only 6. Man, 6 is not that much. So they just kept hitting enough threes to hang around and let craziness happen, and craziness sure happened.
Hey, the other thing I was going to mention, you were right about the John I. Broome situation. Now, if you look at the box, he put up decent numbers. He played, 35 minutes or so, 15 points, 7 rebounds, but he only had, 3 points in the second half and none in the last 15 minutes. And you said you thought his elbow was going to be an issue. I noticed when he was trying to fire the crowd up in the second half, he was doing it with one arm.
Me too.
He wouldn't move the other arm, even to fire up the crowd. So you knew at that point that he was definitely having physical issues there. And but that wasn't even – I'm not even sure that was Auburn's biggest problem. One thing I was going to mention about the demise of the Auburn Tigers, the guards and the three-point shooting, aside from Chad Baker-Mazara, who was 4 for 7, the rest of the Auburn team was, 3 for 18 from 3, Will. We talked all year about how many weapons and how many three-point shooters Auburn has, and aside from one guy, they were 3 for 18 from 3 last night, and that's why they're going home.
Who have you bet in the Masters?
Okay, I played a couple long shots just for the hell of it. Guys, I always look for guys with positive course history at Augusta. We got a lot of data to work with there. I bet Justin Rose at 125-1. Dustin Johnson at 110. I know he's fallen off the face of the earth the last few years when he went to live. But think about DJ 4 years ago, 3, 4 years ago, you're getting this guy at like 20 to 1, 25 to 1 at Augusta. I just got him at 110 to 1. And like I said, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I watched the live tournament a couple weeks ago, and DJ was playing really well. So I took a shot there. I got Joaquin Neiman, 42 to 1. I just played Jordan Spieth at 40 to 1. Colin Morikawa at 14. And I made a small bet just because I don't want this guy to ruin the whole week. I bet Scotty Scheffler at plus 450 because even when Scheffler falls behind, his odds don't get adjusted that much. You know, if he plays a poor first round or second round, odds makers never adjust his price that much. And I hate playing a plus 450 favorite. I think Circa's got him plus 475. I kind of just played that as insurance, Will, in case the other players I bet aren't up on the leaderboard, and Scotty Scheffler looks like he's going to win the tournament on the weekend, because you don't want to get to the weekend and all of a sudden you're playing Scheffler at plus 150 because he's got a 2-stroke lead going into Sunday, or something like that.
Baseball, week and a half or so in. What's been your biggest takeaway, and how do you feel about the Yankees?
I mean, the Yankees kind of who we thought they were at this point. I think the offenses look pretty good. It's just too early to draw too many. You don't want to jump to conclusions this early in the season. I remember a year ago at this time, how many people wanted to bury the Mets, right? The Mets were terrible, rock bottom. Even their play-by-play guy was like, this is rock bottom. And then the Mets came back from that. I think the Yankees are going to be, compete for, I'm not sure they're going to be the favorite, probably are right now, but Yankees are going to have a great chance to win the American League East. And if they get their pitching together by the playoffs, they're going to be competitive. I like their offense. I like the way it looks. But you've said this many times too. An Aaron Judge injury could be a big problem for this team. And keeping him healthy throughout the summer is going to be the key to the Yankees, because if Judge somehow gets an injury issue and he's sidelined for a month or so, the Yankees could go into a big tailspin. You hope that doesn't happen. But otherwise, biggest takeaway is I think the Dodgers are going to win 115 games. That's what it looks like right now. What do you think? What would you set their total at right now?
It's a great question. 109 and a half, yeah. 109 and a half, 110 and a half, something like that. I said before the season 110 that I thought they'd win. I think, look, Snell got hurt on Sunday. He went on the AL, so you start to get a couple of those. I know they're bulletproof because they have so much depth, but that's one thing you could start to chip away. But they've got so many guys. I mean, they've got such an embarrassment of riches. They're going to have guys coming back at some point eventually. Ohtani's going to pitch, which it's been strange. I mean, he got hurt a long time ago. There's been no talk of him. I mean, it was a couple of Augusts ago. It was August of 23 that he got the surgery. Now we're sitting here April, a year plus later, and he's still not back. I don't know when he's going to pitch, but they've got plenty of options.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers are actually like 8 deep in quality starting pitchers, right? So there's also no reason to rush Ohtani back. You don't want to.
Right.
I think I saw a bullpen session that he threw before the World Series in the fall, and he looked pretty good then. I thought if he had to pitch, he could have pitched then. So I think they're just playing it safe and saying, hey, we don't need Ohtani to come back and throw a bunch of innings right now. So it's probably kind of, playing it safe with him. Do you think?
Yeah, you almost forget he pitches because it's been so long. Like I said, a couple of Augusts ago. I mean, he's won a couple MVPs since, or won one MVP since, hit 50 homers, 50 steals last year, doing what he's doing this year. You almost forget he pitches because it's been that long.
It's going to be cool to see him pitch again, though. I love to watch that guy pitch. His improvement as a pitcher was tremendous to watch the last couple of years. I thought I don't know about you, but I thought he had developed into like a top 5 starting pitcher in baseball.
No, he was excellent. Excellent. Yeah. All right, Matt. Appreciate it, man. VSiN.com, VSiN Primetime. Where else can we find you?
On the Will Hill podcast, about once a month or once every 2 months. And like you said, VSiN Primetime weeknights 4 to 8 with I'm not the star of the show. The star of the show is either Tim Murray or JVT. I'm just there to help out, buddy.
Matt, appreciate the time, man. We'll do it again soon.
You bet. Thanks.
All right. Appreciate everyone listening. Rate, review, subscribe. Go to goalboys.com. Check out the Discord. We'll be back Wednesday. See you then.